Latin America and the Caribbean is crossed by specific forms of discrimination in the world of work. While most of them have historic roots, such as those related to gender, race, and ethnicity, its contemporary intersectional feature combines them in very complex processes in a region that is immensely heterogeneous. As the Brazilian expert Laís Abramo states, gender and race inequalities are structural excesses of poverty and social inequality patterns and are not issues that affect small minorities, but rather issues that involve the majority of the population. As in other regions, most important regulatory measures have been taken to address the persistent patterns of discrimination. Most countries in the region have ratified UN treaties, such as the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination from 1969, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women from 1979, and the Convention on the Protection of the Rights of All Migrant Workers and Members of Their Families from 1990. Brazil is the only country that has not ratified the Convention on Migrant Workers yet. Regional organizations such as the OAS, the Organization of the American States for its part, also has a robust regulatory corpus regarding discrimination. As can be seen in the UN Core Human Rights Treaties Indicator, which is attached to this video lecture, most of the countries in the region have ratified between 15 and 18 treaties. Yet discrimination practices persist. More specifically on labor issues, all countries in the region have ratified the fundamental ILO conventions directly related to discrimination, such as Convention number 100 on equal remuneration and number 111 on discrimination in respect of employment and occupation. While most of the spirit of such instruments is reflected at the national level legislation, this does not necessarily warrant its full implementation. The constitutional reforms that took place between the end of the 1980s and the early 1990s incorporated new rights in their regulations, giving visibility to the historical claims of women, racialized people, and migrant workers. Some countries have incorporated dimensions of gender parity with meaningful transformations in social practices. Others have empowered indigenous people in their land claims as a legitimate means of subsistence. Nevertheless, labor reforms in a context of neoliberalism have brought mixed results. While in certain countries, such reforms have facilitated, for example, the criteria to set up unions, they have also fragmented their organization power and reduced their collective bargaining capacity, which are key enabling rights to fight discrimination in the world of work. The World Conference Against Racism, Xenophobia, and Related Intolerance held in Durban, South Africa in 2001 placed racism and the population descended from enslaved people specifically in a new path for challenging their demands through their self-recognition as Afro-descendants. Although the measures that regulate and warranty rights for Afro-descendants are still in unequal stages of progress in the region, the very possibility of being named as subjects of rights, and this includes labor rights, has been recognized as an enormous advance. Anti-discrimination movements such as the women's movement, very complex movement in the region, the indigenous movement, and the racist movement, among others, have been growing in most countries in collaboration with unions and labor activists. As the result of this pressure, policies of inclusion have addressed the lack of visibility and representation of historically disadvantaged communities, generating new leaderships and references among the youth, like the case of Francia Marquez, the Black young woman recently elected as Colombia vice president. Progress has been made in certain areas of development, but not enough to overcome racism and deep structural inequalities that still exist, reveals a recent report produced by the Latin American Economic Commission, the CEPAL. Discrimination in the world of labor is reproduced along structures that are hard to modify if social practices are not challenged. New forms of discrimination are emerging, such as those based on lifestyle, sexual orientation, or age. New migration patterns coming from the emerging conflicts, such as those occurring in Venezuela and Haiti, are also challenging the existing regulatory framework, generating new questions on the effectiveness of the tools we know as for today. These situations are reshaping the world of work, connecting older existing claims. We invite you to read the key reading material for this video lecture to learn more about these issues.